to our tech. We're going to discuss today a little bit about your Sage environment and how to keep it secure. Let's start off by, I'm Orion Rich, and I'm the Senior Systems Engineer at Eide Bailly here, along with a number of our Sage consultants. We have kind of put together this presentation for you. Just a little background on myself. I've been in the industry more than 25 years. I've worked for large companies, small companies, and helped with managing networks of up to 1,500 users in more than 25 locations. I've helped design security policies, procedures, technology training, documentation, and implementation for our clients and previous employers. Well, let's get started. Let's kind of go over quickly some learning objectives. We want to help you identify 3 key infrastructure challenges that have we've seen threatening our stability of our Sage clients' environments. I want to talk a little bit about best practices on optimizing your server systems. We'd like to also talk to you a little bit about backups and recovery and some tips there and some suggestions, as well as give you insight on some security strategies that will help stabilize and give you a solid environment. At the end of the presentation, we'll also send some questions to help you have a conversation with your IT group and ask questions about what are we doing, what can we do to make ourselves more successful, and how can we improve our organization's infrastructure environment. So our first topic really is hardware. Let's talk a little bit about server infrastructure, life cycles, warranty, operating systems, and capacity and performance. Typically, what we see with our clients is we see useful life for server and IT hardware being 3 to 5 years. During that period, we suggest that our clients in their production environments have hardware manufacturer warranties on their equipment. Typically, we suggest our clients develop a strategy based on business needs. Are we going to use our systems and servers for 3 years? Are we going to use our systems and servers for 5 years? Is it in our best interest to have our production systems under warranty that whole time? Are we going to possibly, as our hardware ages, are we going to migrate it into Tier 2 type situations where it might be helpful to have a warranty on those still? Those are all questions you can ask and base your decisions on what drives your business. If it's critical for us to have systems fixed quickly, is it critical for us to have, for us to maintain redundancy on our systems? If it is, then it's important we make sure that we get 4-hour, 24-hour support on our systems from the manufacturer. Typically, we've found that direct manufacturer warranties offer our clients quicker resolution on issues that they might have. Some clients decide to go with a 3-year warranty. At the end of 3 years, it's good to evaluate, do we want to extend the warranty? Is our servers, do we have adequate CPU, memory, and disk in those boxes? Does it make sense to us to extend the warranty, or do we retire them at the end of the 3-year period? It's also important as we get to the time of replacing our equipment to make sure that you're discussing budget warranty replacement. It helps to make those decisions ahead of time, have them on the calendar and say, hey, we're going to start replacing hardware or look at evaluating what we need before the end of your either end of life of product or end of life of warranty expiration. Operating systems. There's a lot of options as far as operating systems goes. Some clients decide that they want to always stay on what's current. Some clients decide they want to stay what's on best, but I think on what's older or proven. It's always best to make sure that you look at these from a business perspective. What operating systems are supported by my software? Is Sage supporting the current operating system? Is Sage supporting my old operating system anymore? Is Microsoft releasing patches? Those are questions you probably need to ask as you move, end of life of Server 2003 has happened. Microsoft's no longer releasing patches, so it's important that clients make a conscious decision of whether they need to move off of that platform or not. Oftentimes, the Sage and other manufacturers no longer support those operating systems when Microsoft doesn't, so it's important for you to move so that you don't lose support on your product. So if you do have issues, you can call the manufacturer and they can provide patches or resolve issues it may have. It's also important as new operating systems are released that we evaluate what features are needed for the business. Is there a business need? Does the new operating system drive business costs down, or does it drive business costs up? Does it add complexity, or does it decrease complexity? Those are all questions that are tied to the business, and you can make those decisions with your IT group. In some cases, for example, older operating systems like Server 2008 R2 don't support as much memory as Server 2012, and so you're able to upgrade to those new systems, take advantage of additional memory in order to improve functionality, improve performance, and also you maybe take advantage of some of the new features that are integrated in the software that may give you better disaster recovery, may give you better backup, and features such as that. Capacity and performance. It's always important to make sure that we're purchasing hardware that'll support our existing performance, and then also try to analyze our performance needs and predict what will happen over the next 3 years. So we'll have minimal upgrades and our performance will continue to be adequate for our needs. It's important that we look at historical growth when we make purchases. So how has our systems been over time? Are we monitoring the system performance of how much CPU and disk utilization we have so that we can predict what's going to happen over the next 3 years? Obviously, you're not always going to be able to predict performance. There's different changes in business, different changes in requirements from your vendors, and also depending on what kind of load you may have as your business grows and ebbs and flows. It's important to make sure that you have headroom when you're making those decisions, and having historical performance numbers and information really helps that. Most systems in our production environment are going to have redundancy. Our servers are going to have RAID. Our servers are going to have redundant power supplies. Our servers are going to have redundant connections to the network, so that if we do have hardware issues, such as a lost hard drive or a bad network card, our systems are going to continue to run. And one of the examples that I have is that we have a recent client that they purchased a new server. The server wasn't a standard HP or Dell unit, but they came back to us and said, hey, we're having performance problems with our Sage. It's not running right. Our reports are taking longer to run than they should. And as we evaluated the performance of the system, the new system that they just purchased wasn't performing at the same level as their old 5-year-old hardware. So it's important to make sure that you know what you're getting, that you know what the performance should be, and then also take metrics to make sure that you're getting that, even out of your new hardware. And make sure that you do have redundancy. We have one client that assumed that their RAID configuration was set up by their vendor that was providing their on-site hardware. As we troubleshot some performance issues they were having, they realized that for some reason the vendor had not configured RAID on the system, and they were only using a single hard drive. So it's important that we actually verify that configurations and redundancy are in place and that we're actually testing them to make sure they're working. move on to our next topic here, backup and recovery. Backup is critical to our business. We've seen a number of our clients have had hardware failures or on-site failures or disk data loss in their environments. We've had even a number of clients recently that have been infected with CryptoLocker or other viruses that have basically made their data inaccessible. So backup and recovery is critical to your business, critical to your Sage environment to make sure that you have availability. Some of the best practices around backup are to make sure you have 3 copies of your data. You're going to have your production copy, you're going to have an on-site copy, and an off-site copy of your data. It's also important that those copies are stored on at least 2 different types of media. You want to make sure that your backups aren't on the same disk as your source data. Typically, we see our clients using external network-attached storage, tape, or in some cases, removable USB media, depending on their needs and the size of their company. A lot of our clients are moving to cloud storage. Cloud storage is a great option for off-site copies of data and allows for flexibility in recovery if you have backup needs, or if you have disaster recovery needs for off-site locations. Cloud storage is a great solution. Make sure that you keep 1 copy of your backups on site. As cloud becomes more and more touted and more popular, we see some clients that's the only copy they have of their data. It's in the cloud, they said. And it's important to have on-site backups as well, so you have those 3 copies. So you have the ability to restore data quickly. Sometimes you only need a file or 2. That works great for cloud, but if you have to store full systems, oftentimes cloud becomes a bottleneck. It becomes a slower store point. Really, backup and recovery becomes important and critical, but you also need to know what your business needs. What kind of recovery point objectives do we have? How quickly do we need to recover our data, and how old can that data be that we're recovering? Some businesses, it's okay if they're offline for 24 hours. Some businesses, no, we can't be offline for 24 hours. We need to recover our data more quickly. We need to be up and running in 5 hours or 4 hours. We need to recover maybe in 15 minutes in extreme cases. And then how old is our data going to be when we're recovered? Is 24 hours okay? Or do we need 15 minutes? So those are all decisions that you can make on a business level as you talk to people within your company, talk to executives. You make sure that these decisions aren't just made in a silo within IT, that these decisions are made at a business level, because there's always costs involved in recovery times and how quickly we can move to our disaster recovery site, or how quickly we can even restore locally. We're seeing, as our clients have moved from legacy type backup solutions to more modern backup solutions, that recovery times have dropped substantially, and the costs of recovering systems quickly and with small recovery time objectives has really decreased over the last few years with virtualization, with modern backup technologies such as like a product called Veeam. They allow us to recover full systems very quickly from our backup media. Kind of one example of what we've seen is that it's important to make sure that you're backing up the right data. I have a client recently that was doing cloud backups. Didn't do any local backups, did cloud backups. They said, hey, I've got all my data backed up, it's great. Well, this client got the CryptoLocker virus. And so we went to their cloud data and to try to recover their data, and realize that their Sage data was no longer being backed up properly to the cloud. They had had a consultant come in and perform an upgrade of their Sage database. They had moved the directory to a new location and hadn't updated the backups in the cloud. Unfortunately for the client, they lost quite a bit of data. They had to recover and go back and re-enter a number of fields within their database that had become encrypted by the crypto locker. So it's important that you make sure your data is backed up, that you're testing it. Are you receiving reports? Make sure that you receive reports of successes and failures so you can immediately fix jobs that aren't succeeding, that you can find out. It's not 3 weeks later, 4 weeks later, or when we try to do restore that we decide, oh, well, man, our backups haven't been working. No one's checked them. Most of the modern backup solutions have the ability to email status reports, and make sure that's happening. Test your restores. That's another thing that often happens is people say, well, I'm getting backups. They're good. They go to the cloud. I get my email. They say they're fine. But have you actually tested them? It's great to test 1 or 2 files. That's what I hear from some of my IT people is, hey, we restored 3 or 4 files. Everything's working great. The reality is that just because you can restore 3 or 4 files doesn't mean you can actually restore a large number of files or that you can restore full systems. I've had an experience where we had to do a large data restore. We had millions of files that we needed to restore off of a large tape library. We'd always done smaller restores. They always worked flawlessly. But when it came to restore millions of files, these millions of files resided across multiple tapes inside and outside the tape library. And it became obvious that as soon as we started restoring these large amounts of data, that they were spread across so many tapes that all the tape library was doing was moving tapes around. And we had to fall back to another recovery method. So example there is just make sure that you've tested multiple methods of restores. Make sure that you're testing full virtual machine restores or full system restores at least once a year or during major times. Just because you can restore files doesn't mean your actual systems and all the dependencies that go along with those are recoverable. So it's critical that we test those full systems, that we're testing to make sure that we have all the things that are dependent on. Is our Sage database up? Is our systems that are dependent on Sage, is Active Directory working correctly? Are we able to restore them so that I'm able to actually access my data once the systems are running? And make sure that other people are involved in the testing. It's important that not just IT is involved, but also that we have people outside the IT organizations, the owners of those systems, the HR software, the Sage software, are we having our accounting folks test the Sage to make sure that it has all of our information in there? Are we having end users make sure that they can remote access into systems, that their email is available, and those kind of things? It's critical that we make sure that we've tested those. Also make sure that you have documented backups. How do we restore? And make sure that you have that documentation created in such a way that other individuals can restore. Can a consultant come in and restore our data for us based on our documentation? Because you may not always have that same person that created the documentation on site available to do restores in a disaster. Probably the final point is to make sure you know where your data is located when it's backed up. If it lives in the cloud, make sure that the cloud isn't just down the street, because that happens sometimes. Your cloud-hosted provider may be in the same city you're in, or maybe in the same geographic region you're in, and so you may not be as protected as you think you are. Make sure your storage companies, if you're storing data for long term, make sure that you know whether that environment is secured. Is it environmentally controlled facility? Are you storing your data in in a Granite Mountain? Are you storing it with Iron Mountain? Where is that location? What is it happening? So make sure you know where your data is. Kind of the last topic that we're going to discuss is security. We'll quickly kind of go over security and focus on some of the things that sometimes we forget about. Employee training. Do you have an employee training plan? They often say you really can't fix stupid, but in most of our companies, we're not hiring these kind of people. We have smart people to work for us. Sometimes make mistakes. So let's educate our staff so we can reduce security mistakes, so that when they look at that email that looks a little bit suspicious, they think about it twice before they double click the attachment. Do they really need to pay an invoice that somehow got through from a vendor that they don't even know, that is attached to an Excel spreadsheet that probably really, when they thought about it, would probably never happen? So make sure we're educating them. Make sure you have policies and procedures in place, acceptable use policies, encryption policies, backup policies, and procedures, so that we know, so that staff can be educated, not only your accounting staff or your general staff, but your IT staff. Make sure that they have procedures that they follow for backup policies and retention, server builds, and those kind of things, so that human mistakes are not as likely to happen. We've seen a lot of ransomware. It's in the news. A lot of security breaches revolve around ransomware. We've seen clients that we have at Eide Bailly that have had ransomware issues. They've had malware. They've had data encrypted. And lost data because of ransomware and email. We've had CFOs that have clicked the email that encrypted the Sage database. So it's important that as we look at security solutions that we're checking to make sure that we have email security that provides multi-layered protection that will protect against zero-day vulnerabilities. You have modern solutions that are doing behavior analysis for attachment protection. Some vendors call this kind of sandboxing. Some vendors charge extra for the maybe if you're using a cloud provider, it's they're going to say, oh well, that's the advanced version of our software that does behavior analysis, zero-day attacks, and does sandboxing. Make sure you know what you have and what's available, so that you can make sure you have the protection you think you have. And does your email security do protection against web content, URLs? Newer, more updated solutions will do URL blocking or URL checking to make sure that as your clients get or your staff get emails, that as they click the URL is actually safe and not compromised. Is your firewall, are you using a next generation firewall? Does it look at application control? Does it do web security? Does it do IPS? Do you have multiple solutions that do those kind of things? And in bigger environments, we're seeing some of those might be segregated out. But are you doing those kind of things? Are your devices configured per manufacturer best practices? Are all your features turned on? It doesn't help if you buy a next generation firewall, but you only don't have anything turned on. Make sure that they're updating. All these firewalls and appliances and security devices typically need updates from the vendor in order to stay current. We talk about Web 2.0 security. Is your firewall able to do Web 2.0 security? Are you able to do application control? Are you able to look inside what's happening with traffic? Are you able to look at inspect SSL traffic for malware and viruses? Because this is where the new generation of malware and viruses are coming through. Their secure tunnel. malware developers have realized that, hey, this is a good way to get past your typical security within my environment, because SSL inspection is sometimes difficult or difficult to implement. So they can say, hey, let's pass in viruses, let's pass in malware via a secure connection. It works great for banking, works great for securing information. Why don't we secure our malware? Also, are we doing making sure that we have and we track, report, activity. Do we know where our people are going? Do we know what kind of web activity they have? Is it secure? Probably one of the parts, or what difficult part, is making sure that we have endpoint protection on our clients. Endpoint protection has moved from a typical signature-based to a more real-time analysis. Are we making sure that we have our endpoints are secure by making sure that they have updated protection, that the software is reporting, those kind of things. We've also seen, just for example, we've had a couple clients that they have email security filtering in place. It's cloud-based, but they aren't using some of the new advanced analysis and sandboxing features, and they've been infected with viruses. So it's critical that you evaluate what you're using and know what features the vendors are providing. Make sure that as you build a security plan that you use what I'd call this Shrek approach, that you have layered, that your security is kind of a security onion, that you have layers of security, because no solution is 100% effective. Multi-layered, multi-vendor solutions are typically the most effective solution for our clients, because if one vendor has a vulnerability, there's more than likely that second vendor is not going to have. If Cisco has a vulnerability in their software, is SonicWall going to have that same vulnerability? Is other firewall vendors going to have the same vulnerabilities? Is our endpoint solution, is it the same virus that our gateway solution has? If you have two different vendors providing antivirus at the gateway and at the endpoint, you obviously are going to have better security, better solution, more likely to catch those issues that are coming through those malware. And then make sure, as an end note, that you're constantly reevaluating not only backups, not only security, but your warranties. What's happening with your business? Are there new factors that are driving my business? Do I need to update my warranties on my servers? Do I need to have better redundancy? Do I need to have higher level of security? As the threat landscape changes, do we need to provide additional security features within our environment? Now, do we need to be PCI compliant? Do we need to start encrypting our data at rest? Do we need to start doing those things? So it's important to discuss what changes you have within your environment, within your IT department, outside of your IT department, with your finance people, so you can do proper planning. A couple of resources we just wanted to go through.
Say, Orion.
Yep.
Before we move on, we did have a question come in.
Okay.
And I know we're just a little over time, so folks, feel free to stick around here. But the question that we did have is, have you seen customers run multiple endpoint security solutions?
Yes, we have. And in some cases, that's a great way to do it. There are several products out there. You can use more of a traditional-based solution from vendors like Symantec or Sophos or these vendors, and then you can there's some new solutions that are out by vendors like Webroot that are more have less overhead, that are less resource intensive, that also provide security in different methods. And so that gives us the opportunity to have multiple endpoint protection. Good question.
Great, thank you.
So I think we all wanted to just touch on a few resources. You know, a lot of our clients like to go to Sage Summit. There's some great things that go on there. You get to find out about new products, those kind of things. So good resource. Also, continuing tech casts from Bailey. There's a website, there's a resource available there. So check those out and see if there's if they can be helpful. And I guess to kind of wrap things up, again, my name is Orion Rich. I'm Senior Systems Engineer for Bailey. There's my contact information. Feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions, comments, and I'd be more than happy to try to get back with you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and thank you for everybody attending. With that, we will end today's webinar, but we will see a follow-up to all of those who did attend with those questions that you can use to equip you and ask questions of your environment. So thank you all so much and have a great day.